और सीटों के हैंडल पर जांचें ताकि आपका कोई निजी सामान दिमाग में न रह जाए। इंडिगो से यात्रा करने के लिए धन्यवाद। आपसे फिर मिलने की आशा करते हुए हम विदा लेते हैं। Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have now arrived at our destination. For your safety, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened and open the overhead bins carefully once the seatbelt sign has been switched off.
The densities that we see in modern Ahmedabad are very different to the ones seen in the core city. This is example of a well-planned part of the city. This, for instance, is the Godrej Garden City, which is a mega township, or as we call it, a micro city. Here the greens form a major part of the city infrastructure. There are provisions for cyclability, walkability, something that we in Ahmedabad have learned over the decades is important. Compared to old city, the densities here are very different. The building forms are uniform, and as it is in the case of a township, they look the same. So there are multiple units. The idea here is to go vertical, increase the space on ground, which creates for a better public realm, which creates for better social facilities and in turn better social infrastructure. These self-contained cities have enough areas for citizens so that they could engage in recreation. There are shopping areas. It is well connected to other parts of the city and state. Everything essential is a part of these cities. For example, schooling. As you might see, as you might have noticed, modern Ahmedabad loves to stay in apartments. We like to go vertical. Again, space is at a premium, and the direct advantage is that we gain more space on the ground. Mind you, we are a city of 6.5 million. There are certain examples of glass buildings which probably do not fit our climate very well, but sometimes commercial aspirations do tower over traditional wisdom. These are shots from different parts of the city where you can see modern developments and apartments which people like to live in. This is another example of a planned mega township. In all these examples, you'll find greens play a major part. This particular example here is of Gujarat International Finance Tech City, also called the Gift City. Gift City is an integrated development on 886 acres of land with 62 million square feet of built-up area, which includes office spaces, residential apartments, schools, hospitals, hotels, clubs, retails, and various other recreational facilities. In a true sense, the Gift City is a walk-to-work city where the development control guidelines clearly define 300 to 400 meters as the maximum space before you start getting nodes of public transit. You can see the greens here are not compromised at all, but at any such instance you will always see the build form encroaches into the greens and the tensions arise there. This particular example is of the Gift City Club, which is a major recreation area. Now Being a self-contained city, GIFT City has hospitality, hotels, so that people don't have to travel far. GIFT City aspires to be in the league of benchmark financial centers like Tokyo, Shanghai, Paris, and Docklands in London. GIFT City has integrated district cooling systems. This is the area where the servers are housed. Interesting part is financial districts of Shanghai and Tokyo. None of this works on plot areas. All of it works on the concept of floor space index. The construction technology employed in these modern cities or modern parts of the city is very different to what traditionally was built. Now, the new part of Ahmedabad development plan clearly emphasizes on the fact that it has to be a transit-oriented city. In this image, you can clearly see the metro track being built, which perpendicularly crosses the ring road underneath it, which has got cycling tracks and pavements on either side, and a bus rapid transit service in the middle. The first phase of metro in Ahmedabad has opened up, and as you can see, it is a world-class service, no less than any other metro service in the world. This example here is of a bus rapid transit service. This allows for these specialized buses, which you can see running in the footage, which take you from point A to point B, and then there are other feeder buses which help with the first and last mile connectivity. The bus rapid transit service corridor benefits from high-speed, non-stop, non-encroached bus traffic. Recently, the Aviation Authority of India has started seaplane which travels from here to the Statue of Unity in Kevadia, Gujarat, which is the world's tallest statue. We notice here that the metro runs very close to the existing buildings. So when a city grows organically, and then when we try to inject specific infrastructure in it, or road or transportation infrastructure in it, we always see this kind of a constant clash. While on one hand, the residents in these areas benefit immensely from the transit services, on the other hand, there's a certain dip in the quality of life because the train passes right next to the windows. This is the example of the Ahmedabad riverfront. The Sabarmati river, which flows through the city, essentially divides the city into the old city and the new city. And the riverfront gives a public realm which is miles and miles long. And this public realm not only allows people to spill out from both sides of the city alongside the river, it also allows for commercial activities, especially of hawkers. Ahmedabad is a city which has more than 3,000 hawkers, and a few of them are licensed to sell their goods here. This is a very clean segregation of the road and transition from road into walkways, and from walkways into the more silent and more serene riverfront. Different parts of the riverfront serve different purposes. For example, this one here is dedicated to public events and it has got permanent exhibit structures which could be rented out by different private and government agencies. There is also a facility of water-based recreation. Work at the Sabarmati riverfront continuously goes on. This is another example where a natural water body called Kankaria Lake has a designed public realm around it. This is example of a lakefront development. The Ahmedabad city has got very interesting densities. Here you can see images of buildings towering over. This particular image that you see is of Vastrapur, which is supposed to be a village. We are just crossing over Ellis Bridge. The city of Ahmedabad has a constantly shifting urban nuclei. This happened as the 600-year-old city was able to grow radially, and once the walled city was unable to contain activity within, business and residential centers started shifting out. What you're looking at here is the example of CG Road, which was one such district. It's a combination of both residential and commercial neighborhoods. The commercial activities line up edges of the street. The residential component goes right behind the commercial component. Ahmedabad, being a part of the smart city mission, is ensuring that we have ample parking, as can be seen here in the video. Alongside that, there is a lot of emphasis on walkability. Traditionally, while our cities grew, walkability and cyclability sort of took a back seat and went on the back burner. But here in this case, you can see multiple transit stops. You can see clearly defined safe space for pedestrians and the cars which are slightly away on from the road. This is the example of CG Road. The modern city of Ahmedabad is an amalgamation of tall buildings, institutions, industrial houses, with transit infrastructure snaking through between them. While building physical transit infrastructure provides the city with new edges, most of these edges end up being grey, dull, and very drab looking. However, very happy in different attempts at making them a little colorful. The underside of the flyover bridges, multiple walls have various murals with our political leaders painted on them, with different messages of life painted on them. As you can see, a couple of examples here are on the underside of these flyovers. This again is example of the BRT track which goes through a very dense neighborhood. Old Ahmedabad, or the walled city of Ahmedabad, was founded by Sultan Ahmad Shah in the 15th century on the eastern bank of Sabarmati River. It presents a rich architectural heritage from the Sultanate period, noticeably the Bhadra citadel, the walls and the gates of the fort city, and numerous mosques and tombs, as well as important Hindu and Jain temples of later periods. old part of the city was the most impacted by rapid industrialization earlier on. Because of the large migrant population, the old city had to react quickly to provide housing for them. The buildings here are a fusion of old restored complexes lined up with newer looking buildings. Large part of the commercial activity as seen earlier on still happens alongside and on the streets. So what essentially used to be very beautiful, intricately carved wooden facades started to become composite examples of material use. Build quick, build cheap strategies, providing housing for all, gave birth to a different kind of urban fabric. What you see here has got the facade, which has mix up of different kinds of construction material. This dense area of the city still thrives as a business district. Originally, this part of the city was never designed for vehicular movement. As you can see, the roads are very narrow. Getting involved in traffic jams is very common. As we can see at this point of time, these roads are not meant for motorable traffic. This is again an example of mixed use in the city, where the ground floor lining up with the main street has got retail and commercial establishments, and they have residential quarters above them. On the inner sides of these lanes and by lanes, it becomes completely residential. There are telltale signs here of those intricately carved wooden facades, which at one time used to be. Right now we are entering Teen Darwaza, or the first identified business district of the city. This came about into being earlier on as soon as the Industrial Revolution started taking place. It had formal arrangement of businesses. As you can see, various shops are arranged in a formal order, and also in an informal order are arranged shops on the pavements, or hawkers as we call them. This is the main citadel of old city called Bhadra Fort. This was a very good example of both Muslim and Hindu rulers living together, both the communities living together. The Bhadra palace was never disturbed by the Islamic rulers, and come rain or come shine, this market would always be there in place. As you can see, it's a bustling center of activity. There are a lot of street hawkers, there are a lot of vendors, a lot of informal business settlements. Traffic rules in these areas do not apply a lot because this entire space is now dedicated towards informal business, and it is largely pedestrian. However, some parts of this still are allowed for vehicular movement. You can find all sorts of goods here. They say that you can find everything ranging from a wedding to a funeral right in these streets. Just right inside these lanes, you would enter the poles of Ahmedabad, or as we call them, the neighborhoods. Old city of Ahmedabad is also home to beautiful religious monuments. This being one of the Swaminarayan temples. It's got a very colorful aesthetic to it. Heritage Walk in essence is a walk which takes you 600 years back on timelines. The relationship of Ahmedabadis with animals is very profound. Green structure here is a bird feeder. People knew that it gets very hot during summers, so they would leave water and food for birds at a height which was greater than that of most of the humans could walk at. What you see here, these little by lanes are all called poles. These are lined up with different religious institutions, public areas. This is example of a little square. This again is another temple for a different Hindu community. The facades are different. This is the example of a Maratha facade. This is a Dutch facade, intricately carved wooden brackets. This is traditionally Ahmedabadi. If you look at these very narrow lanes, you would realize how well they used to work climatically. These were narrow lanes, 2 or 3 story high buildings, which would constantly shade large parts of the city during the day. A lot of people have moved out from these poles into newer parts of the city, but you can still see the ones which are inhabited still look very fresh and lively. These are different examples of poles, narrow lanes. Women would sit on the front yards of the homes. They would chat with each other and the kids would play right in front of them while men went out to seek work. This is the example of a jewelry market by the day, which turns into a food market by the night. And early on in the mornings, people connect back with the nature where they start feeding the various animals. Be it any religion, people would always take care of the animals around them. This again, bird feeders right within the public squares of these poles. Now these lanes have a lot of cars and vehicles parked in them, but earlier on they were not designed with this intent, and hence they are narrow. They were meant to be protective. They were meant to be climatically sensitive. They were meant to be culturally expressive. The urban forms have reacted vertically and in a composite manner. In the city of Ahmedabad, about 20% population comprising of 176,754 families lived in subhuman conditions, or as we call them, slums, in 710 different pockets. From 710 slum pockets, it is possible to provide the services to 417 slum pockets only, out of which 190 slums comprising of 47,300 families are living with inadequate facilities. This gives you an idea of the scale of the problem. These slums are a prime target for the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation for provision of basic infrastructure facilities. Efforts for providing basic services in slum settlements have been ongoing in the state since early 70s through government programs like Environmental Improvement of Urban Slums EIUS, National Slum Development Program NSDP, and others. However, the approach of providing a few of the priority services in parts or some of the other slums neither changed the quality of life of the slum dwellers nor did it change the environmental conditions of the area. The slum networking approach adapted by the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation Though based on the slum networking approach of the funded Indoor Habitat Improvement Program is substantially different in its settlement level approach and to partnerships with NGOs and communities. In Ahmedabad, SNP is undertaken only in those slums where all slum households arrive at a consensus for contributing a proportion of the implementation costs, roughly about $30, for getting household level water supply, sewerage, and drainage connections. NGO partner with AMC for generating awareness about the project and in motivating all slum residents to agree to participate in the project. Few examples that we would be studying in the coming weeks about these are Gupta Nagar, which is in situ incremental development under such a scheme, and the another example is Sanjay Nagar, which is an in situ complete redevelopment project. This task is quite difficult because simultaneously other government schemes enable slum residents to access community level services at no cost. And here we are talking about charging them. The well-off households in the slums often have illegal connections and hence participation in the program is not a priority for them. This slum improvement partnership concept has been experienced at 28 different slums in the city and is fully replicable. Several other communities are now eager to join the project and transform their quality of life. Within the next 5 years, the physical improvement and the community development will be provided to around 25,000 households, benefiting 121,840 people in about 120 slums in the city of Ahmedabad. These 120 slum communities cover nearly 25,000 households identified for provision of physical infrastructure under the slum networking program. The way forward is to formulate state level policy in consultation with all stakeholders and advise for creation of a special purpose vehicle for scaling up the project. If we go by the words of the municipal commissioner of the city, there are 2,600 heritage sites and over 2 dozen Archaeological Society of India protected monuments and sites just within the walled city. And this is one of the chief reasons why it has been declared as the first World Heritage City of the country. or informal, old or new, built or unbuilt, planned or organic, the spirit to thrive in the great city of Ahmedabad lives on.